Hello and welcome to the Raising Athletes podcast. My name is Kirsten Jones. I'm a peak performance and sports parenting coach, author of Raising Empowered Athletes. How do we raise not only strong athletes, but more importantly, extraordinary people who are willing to take risks, who are willing to win, who are willing to lose, who understand that life isn't really what happens in the highlight reels, which is what we all wish it did. It really happens in the trenches when things aren't going our way. And we want kids who are gritty enough to go through those dark moments. And personally, I think our kids' generation is having a much harder time because of all of the things that are going on. And my guest today is, I'm so excited. We met about a month ago. I'm so excited to talk to you about how you're seeing this in your day-to-day world. Ivan, I was at a Los Angeles Police Department's, what do you call it? Community service.
Training day.
Training. And got to speak there and meet 150 of your colleagues and got to meet you. And I'm just so excited about this conversation to hear about your journey as a police officer, as a dad, as an athlete, and how you navigate all of this wearing all of these hats. So welcome. Thank you for making time.
Kirsten, I appreciate you having me on today. You know what? From the moment you got on stage and presented to us, and your philosophy resonated with me so much. I was like, oh my God, I have to connect with her after this training. And obviously we connected, and I think we're very like-minded, when it comes to especially developing young talent. I'm super excited to be on the pod today. And I just thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we have so much ground to cover. We're not going to squeeze it all in, but there may be a part two, but let's chunk away at this. So I love hearing personally, I don't turn on the Olympics to see who stands on the podium. I turn on the Olympics or turn on March Madness to hear the stories and hear the kid who, Sturts is mowing lawns in the summer because that's who he is, to hear about the character. And when I met you, that's immediately what shone through was your character and your understanding of what it takes to be not a good doing well at your job, but being a good human. So I would love to have, if you would share your story about where you grew up, how you came to basketball, kind of what your journey was, and then we'll get into it from there.
No, for sure. So I was born and raised here in Los Angeles. Grew up in a great household, 2-parent household, mom and dad, my older brother, grew up playing basketball, baseball, football, all the popular sports. Ended up playing basketball and baseball in high school. I was blessed enough to receive a scholarship for basketball to college. But I kind of always struggle with that decision because although I love basketball, I think I was very good at baseball as well. But I allowed people to say, you can only choose one sport. You can do. I wasn't stubborn enough to be like a Deion Sanders and kind of do both sports and think my own way. So ended up playing in college. Had a great experience playing in college. Had a great father who supported me throughout my whole, basketball sports journey. But there were obviously some mistakes that I feel, he may have been, too much on. And those are kind of the areas that I try to, as a father, I try to recognize and maybe correct in myself, dealing with my son. But getting back to my story, so ended up graduating from a school out in North Carolina at HBCU. Ended up getting picked up by the Clippers D-League team, the Bakersfield Jam. Played there for about half a season. Ended up going to taking a job in Central America to play. I was there.
Sorry, wait, we hit a pause. So what, just out of curiosity, if you're willing to share, like what is it back then, and what year are we talking? Did a D-League player, how much money are you talking about you would make?
Okay, so we made zero. We made nothing. So back then there were 3 contracts. It was A, B, and C. So the C contract, I was on the C level contract. That was like 12,000 for the whole season. B was 16,000, and then the A was 18,000. Obviously, if you were an NBA guy who was assigned to the D League team, you were making your NBA salary. But all of us other guys were making peanuts. Real quick, I literally remember some of my teammates because we had Gatorades and stuff like that. So after practice, I remember guys collecting recyclables to go for some extra change. It was that bad. Like I think it's gotten a whole lot better now pay wise, but back then it was pretty bad. That was like 09, 2010.
Did you have time to have a part-time job, or no? You were a full-time athlete.
No, not necessarily, because you're still a professional athlete, you're traveling, you're practicing every day. So there was really no time for another part-time job. A lot of people, what they would do back then was they would give it a shot for a couple, maybe a month or two in the D League. And if they weren't on any NBA team's radar, they would shoot overseas and get paid, a pretty penny to finish out the season over there. So there were kind of ways around it, but yeah, if you were strictly just a D League player back then, it was tough. It was
And did
tough.
you have an agent? Did an agent help you get to South America, or how did you get to South America?
Okay, so I never had an agent. My dad actually reached out to the Bakersfield Jam coach when I graduated. Spoke to him, and that's kind of how I got picked up by the Bakersfield Jam. I had to try out and everything. I went to camp, but my dad actually reached out to them. And going to Central America, one of my college teammates, he's from there. He's from Belize,
Hmm.
so he kind of hooked me up with that team. Went out there, played for about a year. Ridiculous experience, obviously, being out of the country for the first time, and living out of the country for the first time. It was definitely a good experience, man. It was an eye opener for sure.
You feel like you grew up a lot just having to be on your own and advocate for yourself.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. You know, uh, Thankfully, I didn't have to worry. I had some pretty good coaches and general managers out there that were on time with money. That's another issue with playing overseas. You never know if you're going to get paid, on time or at all sometimes. But I was in a pretty good situation. But yeah, you for sure have to grow up pretty fast. I was still maybe 20, 21 at the time. Um, and you're dealing with the ups and downs of playing basketball. You're dealing with all that, but now I don't have my family support. I don't have anybody to kind of lean on. I got my friend out there, but it's not the same. So you really have to figure it out on your own and kind of get it out the mud, as they say.
So, what was the deciding factor that you did? Why did you decide to pivot?
So after Belize, after Belize, I was actually working with Rec and Parks, and I was actually coaching a middle school team. So I was on my way from one job. I can't remember, was it from Rec and Parks to the school or school to Rec and Park. I can't remember. But I was in my car, I was driving. I never listened to the radio. Back then I had CDs. Obviously, you put the CD in there and you play your music. So I was listening to I actually wasn't listening to the CD. I was listening to the radio for the first time in I don't know how long. And I was already thinking, I could still pursue basketball, but it'll kind of be like a rat race type of deal. You know what I mean? So I was thinking of other, like you said, ways to pivot. Um, Turned on the radio. I think it was 92.3 The Beat. They were like, LAPD is having a hiring convention at blah blah blah. It was at Crenshaw Christian Center. At Crenshaw Christian Center this weekend. Come out, apply, take the test, blah blah blah. And for whatever reason, it just stood out to me, right? Now my uncle is a retired LA LA County fire captain, and his son, my cousin, is a current LA County fire captain. So I was like, well, I guess the fire department, that's probably in my future. So I went out, applied for both. LAPD came calling first, took the test, went through the backgrounds, went through, it was a very actual, like a rigorous background check. I was living with my parents at the time, and I remember being in the process. And I remember being in my room. It was probably maybe noon or 1 o'clock, in the afternoon. And my mom came back there and was like, "Hey, Ivan, do you know a Mr. I think his name was Mr. Williams, I think." And I was like, "Yeah, he's my background investigator with the department." She was like, "Well, he's in the living room talking to your dad." I'm like, "What?" So I was like, okay. And no heads up, obviously, it was super impromptu, but spoke to my dad, and I watched him walk out of my house, across the street to the next door neighbor's house, to the next door neighbor, to the next door neighbor, all the way up the block. So it was a crazy, rigorous background check, which is totally, I think, fair, right? When you're entering that type of field of work.
Is
Um,
that still how it's done? I'm sure not, huh?
you know what? I've lasted 13 years, so I'm 13 years separated from that process. So
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is, and I honestly wouldn't have it any other way when you're dealing with in a business as this, and you're liable for so many and responsible for so much and so many lives. I believe that type of thorough background check should be something that you do as a
and,
department.
and you didn't really have any heads up necessarily, so you didn't go prep the neighbors, right? Like you.
Zero, zero. I was totally shocked. I was almost mad, like, man, what you doing in my house now? But I was, but I understood it. I understood it, and I came to respect it. I was like, oh, I think that's respectable. And I think that's needed in this career field. Um, so yeah, I went through the process. It's funny because I never knew a police officer growing up, right? And I was actually training a kid in basketball while I was in the process. And his dad walks in the gym one day, and I don't know how, but we got on the topic of police. And I told him, "Yeah, I'm in the process for the police department, blah blah blah." And he was like, "Oh, really? I'm a sergeant at LAPD." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." I was like, "Well, I'm looking for like a ride along because to have something to speak to in my oral interview." And he was like, "I could take you on a ride along." So I linked up with him, went on a ride along. We had long conversation about police work. And you know what's funny? Like, because this was towards the end of my process. So what was fun? I already did the medical, the psych eval, the physical stuff, and so I straight up asked him. I was like, "Hey, look, I know nothing about police. I know nothing about the department. I've never met a police officer really. I hear all the negative things." And I asked him. I said, "You know what? If this department is about the bullying and the taking advantage of your authority, you can give my spot to somebody else because that's just not who I am." And he looked me dead in my eyes and was like, "Dude, that day, I wasn't even on when that day was present. There's so many things in play that hold us accountable. It probably goes on. Let's not be naive. But at the same time, if you get caught, you're gonna get spanked and probably fired." Um, so I took that info and I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Um,
How long was the entire process from when you started applying to when you got accepted?
so my process lasted about 8 to 9 months.
Oh,
So it was a very long process. It was so long that every time they contacted me to move on to the next stage, it was almost like, oh shoot, I am in the process. I forgot, So I mean, it was pretty long. It was pretty long and rigorous. But I remember I was I was playing in the morning because I would go play at a park in the morning, and I remember coming out to my car, leaving, and I was about to get in my car. I got a phone call, and I can't remember the officer's name. This is Officer blah 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 with the Los Angeles Police Department. You have an academy date, and I was like,
what?
uh, okay, and I was so kind of shocked, be you know, because it was just like, wow, okay, and he was on the other end like. This is usually where people kind of go, yeah, and celebrate. And I was like, oh no, 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 trust me, I'm excited. I'm just a little taken back and caught off guard. But yeah, for sure, I'm there. Um,
Do you know
so
how long the process is now? Like
so
the
it can
current?
take. So everybody's process is different.
Okay.
There's expedited processes where you can be in the academy in 3 months. Uh, it could probably take anywhere from 3 to 9 months. Mine was in I had really no background at all for them to really check out. So, but they were just, like I said, being extremely thorough with the investigation, which is understandable. So,
When I spoke a month ago to the group of, I don't know, 100, 150 people in the room, and I always love to do this exercise where I have everyone stand up and then sit down if you stop playing in middle school, sit down if you stop playing in high school, sit down if you stop playing after college. And there were still a dozen people standing when I said, if you're a pro athlete at any level, right? Like that's impressive. And I would assume you stood out to them because of that too. And when I spoke to your cat or your chief after, she said the same thing. Oh, I always recruit athletes first, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's for sure a thing. And like we were talking about before, I believe sports is the greatest metaphor for life, right? You go through so many trials and tribulations, so many peaks and valleys that we're we're trying to stay on this consistent path. You know what I mean? Um, and I think when it comes to police work, even like the fire department, um, I think athletes' mindsets, especially when it comes to the physical, it translates really well to law enforcement, or like I said, even the fire department, because we are so used to putting our bodies through so much strain, and kind of having the mental fortitude to kind of deal with that and push through. And this job can be extremely stressful physically and mentally. So I think as athletes, we're more so prepared for that.
Yes, for sure.
Hmm.
And again, to have I would assume the people that are able to endure longer, like you now 13 years, and like have a, a process you've always worked out. You said, like you said, you were out shooting baskets when you've heard about it. You stayed
Right.
physical, you stayed active in order to maintain that kind of mental fortitude and physical fortitude in a job like that. I would, again, you don't have to be a pro athlete. You don't even have to have been a college athlete, but
Yeah.
you have to want to be physically active, right?
For sure, for sure, for sure. And that was um like going back to the story, like so being getting the academy date and first day of the academy was was like one of the scariest points of my life, probably, just because you're walking in, you like it's a career where you've heard so much, right? You've heard so much about it and so many stories, and some of a lot of them are negative, right? So you have this kind of fear of the
Preconceived.
unknown, right? And so I remember we started at, I want to say we had to be there at like 4 a.m. or something crazy. I know it was still pitch black out, and I remember it was just a wild time. It was like, I tell everybody I quit every day in my head. I say I'm not coming back here. And it was definitely challenging for me, because a lot of the guys in the class had, military backgrounds, or maybe even family member in law enforcement. I had no clue. I was coming in blindfolded. I didn't know what was being thrown at me. It was challenging for sure.
How many were in your platoon, or I'm
So
sorry,
we
what are
in
your
my
group?
in my academy
Class.
class,
Yeah.
we started with, I want to say, like 53.
Okay.
We graduated like 24, 25. So
How many women?
shoot, I'd have to think. I that graduated. I want to say probably about maybe
Okay.
six or something. Yeah. So it you know so back then, I have no clue how the academy works now, but back then, if you failed a test more than once, you were out of there. You were fired.
A written
Uh,
test or what test?
Written test, firearms, any test.
Oh.
They'll give you one chance to make it up. Um, and if you didn't, you were out. You were fired. So it was definitely a ton of pressure, which they tried to apply a lot of pressure, obviously, because the job comes with a lot of stress. So they tried to place a ton of stress on you. They were successful. They were successful with the stress that they applied. But like I said, I think that's where our mentalities as athletes come in and really shine, you know, in those type of moments.
And
So
what's
yeah,
one thing that you know now, having been done it for over a dozen years, that advice you would give either somebody that's brand new or your younger self as you were going through the process?
so I would say take it serious from jump, because I wasn't really, I was fairly fresh out of college, so I was still used to the academic side, but I wasn't necessarily, I took for granted how many tests and mind you, like I said, if you failed a test more than once, you're fired. So you got pressure right there, right? And then we would take, there were days where we take 6 exams in a day, between some all written, or some written and physical tests. Uh, it got to the point where I was like, I have to buckle down and actually get in here and study this stuff, because they were throwing it at you left and right, and it was definitely challenging. But the best feeling was graduating from that experience, especially with your classmates that you went through that stuff with, because they're the only ones that really know what you've been through for the last 6 months, right? So yeah, it was cool, but I was happy to get out of there.
I think one of the favorite days, and I know this is accelerated times 10 since I've been playing and since you've been playing, but my favorite days with sports was, the day that you got to go we didn't have the big reveal in the locker room with all the swag, but just even getting the new pair of shoes was exciting. Do you
Yeah.
remember, like, is it the day that you got the badge, or was it the day they gave you, did they hand you the uniform, or do you remember,
So
like, what was,
one of the craziest days for me right? Because I, like I said, had no law enforcement experience. I never shot a gun before the academy. So I want to say like it had to have been the first week they issue you your gun, and I'm like, I get the box, and I'm like, I'm like, wait, hold on, you guys know there's something in here, you know?
What am
So
I
I'm
supposed
like,
to do with this?
yeah, I was totally, like I said, I was totally just going into it blindfolded. So that was kind of like a wake up call for me. I was just like, oh wow, this is real. This is real. So but for sure the badge was cool because you have a badge ceremony like maybe 3 quarters into the academy. But then it's nothing beats graduation though. Nothing beats graduation, in my opinion, because you know that you've accomplished this and you've gotten through this pretty stressful time in your life. So that was, and then obviously your family's there, and yeah, as a pretty special moment.
What do your parents say about you becoming a police officer? Did they, oh, we knew he was always that personality, or they didn't
No,
expect that at all, or
nobody, no, every time, nobody thought this. When I told my parents, my dad was like, it was weird because my dad was concerned and my mom was more interested. Like, and I was like, wait, hold on. I thought it'd probably be the opposite way. But yeah, my parents, it totally took them by surprise. They're probably still in shock if you ask them today. But yeah, it's funny. They call me all the time when I'm at work, and still, 13 years into the job, and oh, be careful out there. So it's crazy, but yeah, I would say, yeah, nobody thought this from me, because I was always basketball, basketball, basketball.
and I want to get to basketball, but wait a minute, one last question on this. I find your journey so
For
fascinating, and
sure, yeah.
like you, I have no, what I see on TV, right, and what you hear about, and so, but like, what is an average day for you when you're working, or
So
is there no average day?
yeah, it is kind of like that, because you can't really predict. So we work in a field of reaction, kind of, right? So for the most part, all we're doing is reacting to how people are acting that day. So there's some really good days where you're just, not too much is going on to the point where it's, your life's not maybe in the line of danger so much that day. But then there's days that are like crazy, you know what I mean? So I would say an average day, you're just out there really um waiting for radio calls, answering radio calls, calls for service. Um it's a cool job, it's a cool career. When you in the aspect of you're with a partner who hopefully you like, right? Because you're with them 10 to 12 hours out of a day. You're with a partner and you guys are out there doing the best you can to assist and help people, right? Um, and also, like I said earlier, you share that common bond of, like, I'm married now, so but my wife would never fully understand what I go through, because in order to really understand it, you have to actually do this. I
Mhm.
can't really explain it. But it's something that you would literally have to experience. You'd have to be behind that wheel in that black and white, and truly experience it for yourself. You know what I mean? I could tell you stories all day, but it just you still won't really understand it.
Matching up partners, is it like a dating app? Do they do a profile on
So
you? Do you choose your partner? How often do you switch partners? Like, tell me about the
yeah,
partner situation.
so for me, right, coming out of the academy, you do your first year's probation where you're at will, you're an at will employee. Um, and then after your first year in probation, then you what they call will out to your division, a new division. So I willed out to my new division, and I linked up with my classmate. And to this day, he's my brother, like really, you know. We've been through a ton. You know, we have stories for days, man, and it's one of those bonds that, like I said, you really can't explain. It's just it, like I said, to this day, and I don't even work with him anymore because we've gone our separate ways, promotion wise, or um, he's a motor officer now. But that's literally my brother forever and ever and ever. So the bond between like partners is crazy, you know.
What's a motor officer versus what do you do?
So he's on the bikes. So he's on the
Ah,
motorcycles. I'm with the Community Safety Partnership Bureau. So um so yeah, the motorcycle officers usually deal with more traffic enforcement, things of that nature. Where we're still patrol in CSPB, but we're more so dedicated to one area, and our mission is to really engage that area, engage that community, and really get to know them and build a relationship with that community. Um, so yeah, that
and I feel like that's something that we, the common public, don't know. Like, I feel like that should be talked about more. Like, that is so critical. And like, so I'm so grateful to be able to come and meet with you all who are all focusing on this. And maybe that can be a good transition to you talking about your 6, 7 years in. All right. So talk to me about your 6, 7 years into your job. And have you been playing basketball this whole time? Where does this idea that I want to give back to my community and I want to start a non-cost to the parents league?
so I got to the unit, like you said, around 6 or 7 years ago. The kids will have fun with that, right? That 6, 7 thing. But so I got to
My
the
kids
unit around.
groan every time I do that.
Yeah,
Mom, come on, that's
yeah, yeah,
embarrassing.
yeah. So I got to the unit about 6 or 7 years ago. So the unit CSP, Community Safety Partnership Bureau, their mission is to really saturate a community and engage that community and build that relationship and rapport, build that bridge, um, safe passage to schools for kids, and programming. So when I got to the unit, I said, you know what? What better way for me to engage this community and build a relationship other than basketball? I've been doing it all my life. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna make an AAU basketball program. So what I did was I started with basketball clinics in each of the housing developments within Watts. And this was to kind of gain a perspective on who was interested in actually playing basketball. So went to each housing development, pretty much got a list of kids together who wanted to play. Um, and kind of started my journey there. I started with my first kid was in Jordan Downs. I remember driving in Jordan, and they had a RAC meeting. It's like a resident advisory committee. They have it like every month where community members come together and kind of voice their concerns on what's going on in the community. and officers attended too. And so I'm driving in Jordan Downs. I hear, and I go into the rack meeting, and outside I heard a kid bouncing a basketball. So I go out there, and sure enough, little kids bouncing a basketball, shooting hoops on a basket. So I start shooting hoops with them, and I'm like, "Hey, would you want to play on the team?" He was like 6 or 7. He was like about 7 or 8 probably at the time. And I was like, "Hey, do you want to play? You want to play basketball on a team?" He was like, "Hell yeah!" And I was like, "All right." I was like, "All right, yeah, for sure, man." I was like, "So, hey, where's your mom? Is your mom or dad around?" So he goes, drags his mom over to me. Hispanic family. She didn't speak um, really good English. So I was just telling her my plan of this basketball team. And I explained to her, look, I don't have basketballs yet. I don't have a gym. I don't have kids right now. But this is my plan. It'll take me about maybe a month or two to get it started. But is this something you'd be interested in? And she was like, yeah, for sure. So I explained to her again, like, again, this is going to take me some time. And so she was like, yeah, I get it. I get it. So the next day, she gives me a call. Hey, are you guys practicing yet? I'm like, I told you I don't have anything yet. I'm gonna get it going though. But that's when it kind of hit me like, oh man, this community really is kind of desperate for something, right? Something for their kids. And a program like this is something that they really want. So I kind of kicked my stuff into high gear, kind of called some people that I know. Um, from that list of clinics that I did in the housing developments, I got a couple of kids together. I think it was about 7 kids on my team. We had zero practice. I threw them in a local park league at Green Meadows Park. We went undefeated, won the championship. And, after the season, the parents are like, oh man, we want to do this like year round. We want, this. And that was my goal the whole time, was an AAU programming, a travel team. And I was like, you know what? Travel basketball is a whole lot different from rec and park. And they were like, yeah, but we want to do it. We want to do it. I was like, all right, cool. We'll do it. So got those kids together. I called a friend of mine who he threw tournaments. He put on tournaments. So I was like, hey, I want to put my team in a tournament. He's like, okay, cool. And so we went to that tournament. I mean, I've never been beat so bad coaching or playing in these 2 Saturday and Sundays that I experienced that weekend. I mean, I was embarrassed. I wasn't even playing, and I was embarrassed. But I explained to the kids that what I'm interested in is who continues to come, who comes back, who comes to practice this following Tuesday after experiencing this. Who's going to continue to come? And I explained to them that, and sure enough, Tuesday comes, the whole team showed up to practice, and ever since then, we've been rolling. I want to say prior to COVID, I mean, easily 75 to 100 kids in the gym on a random Tuesday for practice.
Whoa.
And I didn't. So for me, right, I don't even necessarily promote it like that, just because I enjoy really, really becoming family with these families. Every team that I have, I know the family. I've been invited to quinceañeras. I'm sure down the road, I'm going to be at weddings. I'm going to be at, all types of things, man. And I enjoy that about this program. And I just knew that 100 kids is just too much for me to really give my all to each one of those little guys, And that's what I really wanted to do was really put energy into every one of those kids, and that's impossible at that amount of kids, and it's just me. So after COVID hit, numbers kind of went down, which was fine. Um, and I got blessed, man, because I want to say 22, maybe 2022. Um, a lady by the name of Gabby Arvizu uh, contacted me, and she was I think the representative for like the West region in Nike.
Hmm.
So she contacted me. We met up, and because Nike had they had just opened a local store in Watts.
Hmm.
And so we met up over there at a Starbucks over there, and she had this idea of investing in girls to play. So I was like, yeah, for sure. I'm all in. It's Nike. Are you serious? And so since 2022, 23, they've provided our uniforms every year. I can call them to this day. And Gabby has since moved on to Students Run LA. I think she's like the president of that.
Oh, yeah.
But she made sure to leave me in really good hands, and a lady named Liliana Bolanos, and she's kind of took the baton and kept running with it for us. So they've blessed us in ways that I couldn't even imagine.
So you have
And
one girls team, right?
so I have two high school girls teams, but we combine them basically for the summer to travel.
Hmm.
So we'll only have one to travel this year. And this year, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but the program is totally free for the kids. They, like I said, Nike donates the uniforms. Um, I don't charge the kids. We're always looking to for people for funding, obviously, because a lot of money is going out, but there's no real money coming in. So we're always looking for people who are interested in investing in the community and in the youth. Um, so so yeah, it's like I said, I think it's a great program. I think it's a way that the kids get to know me and other police officers, hopefully, as just people outside of the uniform. I've had kids who uh, didn't even realize I was a police officer for a year, being with me. So it's a cool little dynamic, I believe.
A
Um,
couple years ago, you had CNN did a piece on you, and I watched that. And the statistic I think you said in there was if we get them before age 11, right? Like that's how we can
right.
be prevented
Yeah.
joining a gang.
So yeah, I want to say maybe 2023, maybe CNN wrote along with me. They heard about my program. They reached out to me, and their series is called Beyond the Badge, I believe. And so yeah, they rode along with me. Got to see a lot of the kids. Got to meet a lot of the families. See what I do on a daily basis. And yeah, like I said, typically kids will probably start kind of dabbling with the whole gang thing middle school age. And so if I get a kid at 9, 10 before that comes, hopefully we can kind of intercept that and hopefully set them on a path for some pretty good success. I think my dream for the program would be to really connect, because I partner with the Clippers, I partner with the Lakers, Nike, and everybody's been extremely good to us. But if my dream would more so be um, internships in the summer, like a real connection with these organizations to the point where the kids there's a pipeline, right? The kids from Watt Skills Academy, I have at least 2 spots in Nike every summer for internships reserved for these kids. Or I have two spots reserved in the front office with the Lakers or the Clippers. I would love to. I would love to sit down in front of Steve Ballmer and explain to him and kind of pitch this idea to him. I would love a facility in the city of Los Angeles or even neighboring cities, but um, to host tournaments, to practice, um, because as of now, we have to go way out in the IE, way out in Orange County or Thousand Oaks. Everything is miles and miles away from us. So if we were blessed enough to be able to host tournaments and practice right here in our backyard, I think it would just do so much for I think for the community and for the morale, of the kids in the city.
I,
So,
I've lived all over the place, and it's funny. And then speaking at different places, and parents will say, "Yeah, well, we don't join that club because it's like a 20-minute drive." And you're like, "Okay, we live in Los Angeles. Like there is nothing under an hour that you can get to, basically, right?"
yeah, man. And that's if the traffic is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's if you leave at 6 in the morning to get down to Anaheim in time, right? For the
Ex-
9 a.m.
ex-
start. Yeah.
Exactly.
You and I spoke about this a month ago when we were chatting. I just kind of and I asked you that, what's your dream? And there's got to be people that have connections to say, and that has been one of the biggest challenge with youth sports overall is accessibility to actual places to play and safe places to play, right?
Yeah, for sure, and that's really the idea that I want to push to people is, like you said, accessibility. It You can even see it in high school sports right now, right? The city of Los Angeles sports, like LAUSD, is kind of on a downward spiral, while the St. John Boscos and the
Oh,
modern day Sierra Canyons
yeah.
are all prospering because I think it's a lot to do with accessibility, right? I'm sure you go on these campuses and you see state of the art weight rooms. They probably have trainers, just all types of resources that these kids can actually reach out to and get, treatment. When, a kid from, LAUSD is, if their ankles are wrapped, they're wrapping it on their own. If mom or dad is wrapping their, tape on their ankles. So I would love to, like we said, that would be my dream, to really sit down in front of someone and pitch the idea of, you know, taking a program like Watt Skills Academy, um, building a facility where we can, like I said, host our own tournaments. We can host our practices. We can host, all types of things, trainers, just like you said, just facilities and resources alone would do so much for these youth in the inner city. So yeah, that would for sure be my dream. So yeah, if anybody's out there looking like watching like Steve Ballmer, I don't know if he's I would love to
That'd be nice.
I would love to sit down with you.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. My husband worked for Fender for 10 years, and during COVID, they gave
Mhm.
out over 10,000 guitars. And one of the reasons they did that was they said the next generation, the next her, the next John Legend, the next whatever, you name it, artist is a kid in an inner city place who doesn't have the resources to go to the fancy school or get to and I think the same, that you have your IMGs everywhere, you have these big academies popping up, and for the parents who can afford the 95 or $90,000 a year for your kid to start training at IMG at age 8, that's one thing. But we're talking about the opposite of giving them the tools for life and the accessibility in an affordable way that That talk about changing your community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's also so one of my philosophies with young athletes, right? A lot aligned with your philosophies in raising empowered athletes, right? In your book is confidence and building confidence in them. For me, that's number one, right? Um, I try to do that either before fundamentals or right alongside with fundamentals because I need you to believe in yourself, right? And it's hard to, like Deion Sanders says, you play well, you look good, you play good, you play good, they pay good. It's it, it's a little bit more difficult to perform when your resources aren't there or up to par. There's always that, obviously, that one that rises above those circumstances, but I think if the playing field was a little bit more even and resources were um, as accessible to others as it is to these kids, I just think that matters. I think that definitely matters. I think uh, that has a lot to do with trusting yourself and having confidence in yourself and believing in yourself. Um, so that would be my, like I said, that would be my dream, is to build that facility for these kids, for the youth, and have those resources at the tip of their hands, kind of like some of the other schools have. Um, so yeah,
There's a phrase I heard the other day, which I really like, and it talked about earned confidence. And one of the biggest things I get reached out to from parents are like, you talk to the kid, well, I'm just not confident. Well, I just don't believe in myself. Well, when we hand every kid a trophy, when we hand every kid, oh, you're on the ones team, like that, I think that's part of what's happening to AAU and all the travel things is they're not earning their way in. They're being handed it, right? And then with that is a hollow bag that then all you need to do is blow on it and the whole thing will fall over because they haven't had to push through and persevere when it wasn't going well, right? The best athletes I know, the best leaders I know, I'm sure you can talk from your own point of view, are those who have it's not, and I was just having this discussion with my 25-year-old, it's not about the ones that are standing winning when the lights are shining on you. It's those who are willing to show up when there are no lights on, when the things go bad, when you don't know if this is going to work out, when I don't even have a gym, I don't even have balls. Oh, I'm just going to try to make this happen anyway.
mm-hmm. And it's funny because I talk with my buddy all the time about it. AAU is extremely watered down, right? For me, so growing up, I grew up in the parks. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, football in the parks. AAU started to come around maybe in high school, maybe for me. So it was new. It was pretty new. But to get on it, no, I was around middle school. I'm sorry. But to get on an AAU team, I had to try out. I had to try out. I had to make the team because AAU back then was very elite.
Mm-hmm.
And if you weren't good enough for AAU, you would go to the park and play, which was fine. That's where you develop. That's where you learn. That's where you get good. That's where you gain your confidence. But now it's crazy. But the park leagues are so dried up, they don't even have enough to field an actual basketball league because everybody's playing AAU. Even kids that should be in the park
Mm-hmm.
developing, they're all playing AAU. So, like you said, nothing's kind of earned anymore. Everything is given. And I believe it hurts kids in the long run because that's not how the real world works. And when you get into the real world and you expect and you feel entitled for things, you're in for a huge disappointment because I don't have to give you this if you didn't earn it, right? If you didn't deserve it. So a lot of that is because of the money, right? Because these AAU programs are like, yeah, he's not really up to par. He's not necessarily going to play, but his parents could pay this $300 a month, you know?
Well, and that's what's making it confusing for the parents too. So, in defense of the parents, like, I wrote a check, I paid all this money, I traveled to Omaha, and my kid isn't even touching the floor. So, why am I on a ones team traveling, spending all this money, getting a second job so that my kid can play on this quote unquote elite team or twos team because we can't afford, the ones team is the shoe team and they get everything paid for and we're paying for them. And that's what's this trickle down. We're at an hour already, if you can believe that. I can't even believe it, but I'm going to have you back because one exciting thing that's happened even just in the last couple of weeks is I've been invited to go speak in Boston at the youth summit that the Aspen Institute is putting on. And their whole mission, I think it's 60 by 32, which is we want to get 60 million kids playing by 2032. So it's exactly what you're talking about, Ivan. It's the grassroots. How do we swing back to, I'm a 15-year-old. I don't want to play in college. I don't even necessarily want to play at the highest level. I just want to go play. I want to be healthy. I want to play pickup. I want to enjoy hanging with my friends. I mean, I think the number one thing I hear from kids that are in competitive sports, I have a client right now who's a swimmer and she's been competitively swimming for 15 years. And I said, what do you love most about swimming? And she said, my friends. And again, that's not the wrong answer, but like, that's what most kids want, right? Yes, and she's like, now I'm good at it because I've been doing it for 15 years, but no 3-year-old is like, I want to get a college scholarship. They're like, or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old mostly even are like, they're just like it because that's what their friends are doing.
And that's a great point because I consistently ask my high school girls because they're the closest to college, right? Do you want to play college basketball? There's no right or wrong answer.
Right.
You can say yes, and okay, cool. Well, we're gonna work. You could say no. I just want to travel, have some fun with my friends. Cool, but a good coach is going to find out and figure out what their kid wants out of this, right? And a good, I didn't say good parent, but a parent should reach out to their kid. And I'm not talking about, like you said, a 5-year-old, but a kid who's, 12, 13, 14. Hey, okay, we're at the point where, we can start separating ourselves from other kids, or we can continue to just have some fun. What do you want to do? What do you want to play at the next level? Do you want to play in high school? Yes. Okay. Well, let's work. Do you want to play in college? Yes. Okay. Well, let's work.
And honestly, I think most kids will tell you, I don't know. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. Like, they can't even tell you what ice cream they want. How can they tell you what they want to do 5 years from now? And they have no concept of what it would be like, what the commitment would be to playing college. Because they're like kind of iffy on if they want to. I mean, some of them really love the sport, but that doesn't mean they want to spend 40 hours a week doing their sport eventually, right?
Right. And that's why that's why the kind of athletic population gets smaller and smaller on each level, right? Because, like you said, a kid can say all he wants. Yeah, I want to play college basketball, but you don't understand what it even that entails. And if your parent didn't go through that, how are they really, really going to explain to you? say I never played college basketball, I could say, yeah, you're gonna have to put in a lot of work. Well, what does that mean though? You know what I mean? Like what does that mean? So
I
um
get it from the parents' side. When they're spending all this money, they have a lot of sunk costs. Or that's what, and I've heard parents say that, like, she can't quit volleyball at 16. I've been doing this for 10 years, right? And our egos get caught up in it. Our, I could, all the parents that joke, I could have had a second home. We could have had, vacations, all of these summers. And that's where I always say, come back to the parents and what do you want for your family? What are your family values? And then how do we resource according to, no, this is a kid that's super. And by the way, if you have three different kids, you're going to have three different personalities around what, and by the way, sometimes it's the most talented one that's the least interested.
man,
Right?
man, I I'm I see that right now in one of my teams. I won't say it because she may watch this, but but yeah, for sure, I see that right now, and it's just it's wild, and that's how it's been my whole life. I remember I was never the most talented. I remember the most talented kid, and I'm like, golly, he doesn't work at all, and I'm over here busting my butt, like, and I can't beat him. I can't. So that's one of those things for sure. That's always been a mystery, and I see it right now as a coach. Um,
I heard
so
a
yeah,
D1 coach recently say what the biggest thing that's missing from AAU basketball is effort. He said, I don't, and I can't teach that. So that's what I'm looking for when I am recruiting. Because if I got a kid who's ridiculously talented, but isn't interested in working, then he's not good to me. Like I can't, I can't want it more than you, essentially.
yeah, yeah. I can't, like he said, I can't teach effort, and I tell the kids that all the time. I could develop the heck out of anybody. I'm that confident in my skills and my development skills. I could develop a player. I cannot develop your effort. That's you. That's you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a screamer. I'm not this guy on the sideline that's, hey, get that. I don't believe even need to. I shouldn't have to do that because you should be on the court with such desire and passion because you have a goal that you want to attain.
Mhm.
So I'm totally in agreement with that. I even tell my kids that all the time. Like I can't. It's impossible. I can't. I could draw up a ton of plays, right? I'll pin down this here, go here. I can't draw up any play to get you some effort. That's just something that you have to have.
You have to decide. All right.
Hmm.
Well, this is insane because I usually like am running out of things to say by, 40, 50 minutes, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the difference between transformational and transactional coaching, which this is what you're talking about is transformational coaching. And that's what you're doing with these kids and for these kids and in your community. I would love to, after I go to Boston and hopefully come away with some good insights and maybe some ideas, we can even talk about how we can collaborate. Like this is such a passionate thing for me to be able to help, like, and I'm sure you've got stories of kids and you're just even on the front end of it. Like you said, someday you'll be going to weddings, someday you'll be, like
Yeah.
that's to me is the most powerful thing about sports is how you can change lives that way, right?
And I tell, because my girls are the only ones that really travel right now because they're in high school. I want them to get exposure, but I tell them all the time, yes, while everybody on this team is talented enough to get a scholarship on some type of level to play in college, I'm going to tell you right now, the one thing you're going to remember are the times with your friends on these trips. Do not allow yourself to be like me and go all these cool places and be so zoned in on this one thing on basketball. It's a good thing, but be in the moment, be present, and create memories that will last forever. Nobody's gonna remember who won the weekend tournament in Palm Springs on April 14th in 2001. Nobody cares. But you're gonna remember going to Dave and Buster's with the team and you know the memories that you guys created there. So I'm that's extremely important to me and big to me. I'm huge on that. I totally try to reinforce that to my players all the time. Just be present, be in the moment, and really live it up. On the court, obviously, do what you got to do. Off the court, let's have some fun.
Ivan, I don't know if you've seen this one, but floating around the internet, it pops up every couple months. But I think it's Boston College, but they're interviewing a senior who I think who's graduating, and what are you going to miss most about your college basketball experience? And he starts sobbing, and he can't control himself. And when he finally says something, he says, "The team dinners." And it's 100% true. And now I'm, God, 40 years out from my high school experience, 35 years out from my college experience. You remember, yes, if you won the state title, if you lost in the state championship, I remember that like it was yesterday. But most of all, you remember the bus rides, the team dinners, and for these kids, if they get to go to, stay the night in a hotel and go to these different places, like how special is that? And those are the lessons.
And you know what's crazy is that moment with that kid at Boston College. If you didn't play sports, you kind of probably looked at him like, what is he talking about? But if you did play sports and you totally get it, you totally understand why he's crying because I remember those bus trips. I remember pregame meals. I remember postgame meals. I remember the travel time. I remember stuff. I remember more stuff off the court than I do actually on the court. You know.
Next time we're going to talk about NIL and the transfer portal, and I'll close with this. My middle son, second child, is still playing in college, and 5 of his teammates are getting in the portal, and he's honestly the most sad because he loves those kids. He said, these are my friends. One in particular is my best friend since high school. And I don't blame him for going. I think, I understand if there's the right opportunity, you need to go. At the same time, I think the knock-on effect that we're going to see of this whole transferring schools every time, again, I'm not saying that's not the right thing to do because some of that is life-changing money. But on the flip side, the relationships that you make that, I'm still in touch with so many of my college and high school friends because of these experiences.
Yeah. Real quick, I know we're wrapping up, but I went back to my school for the first time in 20 years, almost 20 years, to my college that I graduated from. Um, and I took my
A little shout out.
Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina. And it was the craziest experience, not because of, everything that was going on, but just I literally I took my family out there and literally it's on Monroe Street. As soon as I turned on Monroe Street and saw the campus, it was like, wow, dude. Wow. Like I said, almost 20 years later, and it had nothing to do with basketball. None of the memories really actually had to do with basketball. It was with my basketball teammates, but it was all memories from off the court stuff, man. And those are the things that I try to really press upon my players is you're gonna make, like I said, nobody cares about this little weekend tournament. What I really care about is 10 years, 20 years from now, you reach out to me and you two are still best friends. You four are all still, you're the best man at his wedding. You're the bridesmaid at her wedding. You know what I mean? That for me will be success.
And I 100% tell you're the type of coach. This morning I walked out of the gym and I had a text from my college coach. I'm worried about Parker Pie. How is your son? How is he doing? Let's talk, right? And she lives
Yep.
in Virginia. I don't see her
Yeah.
at all, but she still is watching to see if I'm okay, to see if
Hmm.
that to me is transformational coaching, right? Like
Right, for
cared
sure.
far more about me as a person than she did as, yes, she was like, great that you're a good athlete. I'm glad to have you. But it wasn't about volleyball. It was about who I could become and wanting to be on that journey with me. So,
For sure.
Ivan, this is amazing. We could talk all day.
All day. Yeah, I told you that earlier. I was like, man, we could literally talk for hours. I already know. So we'll have to give ourselves a hard stop time.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'll be back with him, but please, parents,
please.
athletes, coaches, if you're listening to this and you enjoy this, reach out. And if you have ideas about how we can expand the Watts Skills Academy, if you have resources, like to me, this is the power of this. Why I do this is I think 1 + 1 is 3, and we all help each other. And I love being a part of, I'm a team sports girl. I love passing the ball and helping, others along their way. Hopefully you found this helpful too. If you're still listening, then this has been a worthwhile hour and 10 minutes. And I thank you for your time. And Ivan, thank you so much for being here with me.
Kirsten, I appreciate you so much for bringing me on your platform. Like I said, please, I'm available whenever we could talk. We could talk. We could talk for days. So just hit me up.
We're going to do this again. One last question I'm going to say. The best athletes I know do this. Well, how would you finish that? With a word, with a phrase, with a paragraph?
Believe in themselves. Believe in themselves, and that's why for me, I push the confidence thing so hard to my kids. Believe in yourself, trust yourself, have confidence.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do, for keeping us safe. We admire your work, and I know it's dangerous work, and you're raising young family yourself. You've got a 6-year-old who is ready to take the courts by storm too. So I can't wait to follow his journey and your journey, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you so much, Kirsten.
Let's do this.
Yeah.